with that.
I mean, I can control what I control, so how they feel, how they feel.
Seems kind of ridiculous to me. Like, he's good, but he's not this good.
Was there any point that you considered not coming to Utah?
No, not at all. I mean, blessed to be in this position I am. Not a lot of people can sit in these chairs.
Look, we all remember the Ace Bailey draft drama, right? The kid was supposed to go in the top 3 and he ended up sliding to 5 after what looked like one of the most disastrous pre-draft processes we've seen in years. Teams were scared off, his reputation took a massive hit, and everyone blamed him. But here's what's wild, 3 months later, everything we thought we knew about that situation, yeah, it's flipped completely upside its head. And what's happening right now with Ace Bailey might be one of the craziest redemption stories we've seen in recent NBA history. Because the kid everyone thought was an entitled diva, he just put up 25 points in his preseason debut against Kevin Durant. The manager that everyone defended as just protecting his client, he's been fired, and the timing is suspicious, really suspicious. So real quick before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to get the latest NBA news to your device. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. If you took my Monday Night Football play in my last video, then congratulations on 3.5xing your money. And now PrizePicks gave us a free square to celebrate the new NBA season. Steph Curry just needs 1 point for his square to hit, and I have a play for you to take advantage of this. First, download PrizePicks and use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more when you sign up for PrizePicks. And for opening night of the NBA season, I have Steph Curry making less than 4.5 threes, Alperen Şengün getting more than 10 rebounds, and Luka getting more than 48.5 points, rebounds, and assists, which should be easy because the last time he came off of a summer where he played European basketball, he went way over this. I have additional plays on my IG page, and my Discord server has been profiting each and every single day, and you can check that out in the WAP link in the description down below. And thank you, PrizePicks, for sponsoring today's video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Let me paint you a picture of October 8th, 2025. Ace Bailey's NBA preseason debut, Houston Rockets versus Utah Jazz. And guess who's on the other side? Ace Bailey's idol, who he models his game after, Kevin Durant. Bailey dropped 25 points on 11 of 16 shooting, added 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block in 31 minutes. But it wasn't just the numbers that stood out. Here's the stat that's gonna blow your mind. Across his first 2 preseason games, Bailey scored 45 points on 29 shots and only used 28 total dribbles. That's less than 1 dribble per shot. He took no more than 2 dribbles on his 11 field goals in his debut. Now you might be wondering why that's such a big deal, because at Rutgers, one of the universal concerns about Bailey's game was that his offense came very hard. Everything was contested. Part of this was because Rutgers, outside of the number 2 overall pick, Dylan Harper, didn't have anyone capable of drawing defensive attention away from Bailey. But it was also a problem that Bailey was so bothered by the pressure he did face. Think about what you just watched if you saw those highlights. Bailey was making quick cuts to get open, not getting caught ball watching, making several cuts inside for easy looks at the rim. And when the ball was in his hands, he often had a plan, even if it was just as simple as creating space for a mid-range jumper. Only one of his buckets came out of isolation, and even in that one, he got to a spot at the elbow with exquisite efficiency and footwork, requiring just 3 dribbles punctuated by a spin move. This is the difference between playing at Rutgers, where you're the only offensive option that teams have to game plan for, versus playing in a Will Hardy system designed to maximize your strengths. During his lone season at Rutgers, Bailey scored 1.054 points per possession coming off of screens and 1.4 points per possession on cuts. The Jazz literally studied his college tape, identified his most efficient scoring opportunities, and built an entire offensive system around getting him those exact looks. And Kevin Durant,
dynamic player. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. I love the coaching staff that he's with. I love that he got drafted to Utah. They got a good developmental program over there that I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses. I'm expecting a big year from him and a big career from him, and tonight he showed what he could do.
Coming from a guy that doesn't hand out compliments like candy, that's huge. But here's the kicker. A local paper in Utah had already reported before the season from every possible source that Bailey is a humble, hardworking hoop junkie with a heart of gold who is eager to start his professional career and continue learning. Wait, What? Guys, remember, this almost didn't happen. Bailey almost scared off the Utah Jazz. He certainly scared off the Philadelphia 76ers from drafting him. This guy was supposed to be a locker room cancer, and all of a sudden he gets drafted to the best possible position for him, to a team that studied his college tape and built an offense around him. So what exactly happened? Well, the answer might shock you. Now, before we get to the conspiracy that's about to blow your mind, we need to talk about why this efficiency is happening to begin with. Because 28 dribbles on 29 shots doesn't just happen by accident. That's coaching, that's preparation, and that's a system built specifically for Ace Bailey's skill set. Will Hardy spent the entire summer watching film of Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum from their rookie years. Not the superstar versions that we see now, their first years in the league.
You know, with guys like Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum, we all know what it looks like now, and that can be distracting. So it was good for me to go back and watch a lot of that film and try to understand what the beginning of that road looked like. I think there's things to take away. I think understanding kind of play types and what that diet is. Maybe not as many ISOs when you're super young. Doesn't mean none, but what can we do to try to make Ace's life a little bit easier?
Think about that level of preparation. Hardy is literally studying how to develop a future superstar by analyzing the early career development of two current superstars. He's specifically thinking about play types and diet. Maybe not as many isolations when Bailey is super young, but finding ways to make Ace's life a little bit easier without making the team about Ace. And that's exactly what we're seeing in these numbers. Less than one dribble per shot means Bailey is catching and shooting, cutting off of screens, attacking closeouts, and getting easy looks with the flow of the offense. He's not pounding the ball, he's not forcing contested jumpers like he had to at Rutgers. He's playing efficient, smart basketball because the Jazz are putting him in a position to succeed. This is the developmental infrastructure that Bailey walked into, not some middling franchise that would misuse him. The Jazz have been masterful at player development under Hardy, and Danny Ainge, Utah's president of basketball operations, he told reporters after the draft that we were able to speak to him. He was super excited. We're super excited. His scoring gets a lot of attention, deservedly so. He's very skilled for his size, but watching a lot of film on him, I was impressed with his defensive effort and particularly his rebounding. The Jazz saw through all the noise. They did their homework and they refused to be bullied. All right, now we're getting to the part that's gonna make you say no freaking way, because the timeline here, it's too perfect to be a coincidence. What caused this problem to begin with? Well, take a look at this. This all has to do with Ace Bailey's manager, Omar Cooper. Now take a look at this timeline. On September 19th, 2025, the Washington Wizards announced that they're signing Sharif Cooper, that is Omar Cooper's son, to a two-way contract. Now this raised some eyebrows immediately because Sharif had been bouncing around Europe the last few years on teams that were not even good enough to be in EuroLeague, and he hadn't played in the NBA since 2022. 5 days later, Tony Jones of The Athletic reported that Ace Bailey parted ways with Omar Cooper and is seeking new representation. That's very suspicious. Let me break down what we do know for sure. During the pre-draft process, Bailey's representatives told at least one team in the top 5 that they didn't want the team to select him, and that he wouldn't report if they did. The widespread belief among NBA insiders was that the preferred landing spot was the Washington Wizards at pick number 6. Bailey's fall from a potential top 3 pick to number 5 cost him roughly $9 million, but more than that, it cost him his reputation. For weeks, people were calling him entitled, comparing him to problem players, and questioning his character. And then, just weeks before the season starts, Omar Cooper's son, who hasn't been in the NBA in 3 years and was playing in random European leagues, suddenly gets signed by the exact same team that Omar was supposedly trying to steer Ace towards. And 5 days after that signing, Ace fires Omar. Now, I'm not saying I know exactly what happened, but if you're Ace Bailey and you're watching this unfold, what conclusion are you coming to? You went through hell during the draft process. Your reputation got dragged through the mud. You lost millions of dollars. Teams were scared to draft you. And now the guy who was supposed to be protecting your interests just got his son signed by the one team he was pushing you toward? That's really sketchy. But it gets even more sketchy. In July, ESPN's Tim McMahon reported that the NBA blocked Utah's attempt to add Omar Cooper Jr., that's Omar's other son, to its summer league coaching staff. The Jazz had planned to bring him in as an unpaid guest coach, supposedly to help Bailey's transition, but the league stepped in and shut it down. So let me get this straight. Omar Cooper is not even a certified NBA agent. He was not certified with the NBPA and was therefore forbidden from representing his client in contract talks, but he somehow somehow got enough pull to try to get both of his kids jobs with NBA organizations, and one of those attempts succeeds with the Wizards right as the NBA season is about to start. There's also the bizarre detail that Omar wanted to get paid for Ace to do on-camera interviews during his college season, not just agent fees for contract negotiations. He wanted media outlets to pay for access to a college player. That's not normal, and that's not how any of this typically works. And then there's the video after the draft. Omar posted content on social media showing off his watch and jewelry. While his client was dealing with the fallout of dropping in the draft and losing millions, Omar was flexing on the gram. And this is where it gets sad, honestly, because Ace Bailey was just a kid. He met with Omar when he moved from Tennessee to Georgia to play high school basketball at McEachern, which was a national powerhouse ranked #1 in the country. Omar helped develop Bailey in high school and connected him to Rutgers as a recruit. This wasn't just a business relationship. Omar was like a mentor, a father figure, someone that Ace's family trusted completely. And look at what happened to Omar's own son when he let Omar call the shots. Sharif Cooper was a 5-star recruit who went to Auburn, got investigated by the NCAA for improper benefits and contact with an agent, couldn't play the first 12 games of his freshman season, and then entered the draft way too early against everyone's advice. He dropped to the second round, barely played in the NBA, and has been overseas ever since. That should have been a massive red flag, but when you're 18 or 19 years old and you trust someone, you don't always see the red flags. Andrew Whitlieb, one of Bailey's actual NBA certified agents from GSE Worldwide, said after the draft that Bailey is thrilled to be going to Utah and that it's a great situation for him basketball-wise. But that statement only came out after all the drama had already unfolded, after the damage was done, because Omar Cooper was the one controlling the narrative, the one teams were actually talking to. You want to know who the real heroes of this story are? Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge, father and son, the new leadership of the Utah Jazz, because they saw exactly what was happening and said, nah, we're not playing that game. Brian Windhorst said on ESPN's Get Up that they will absolutely not budge on this, and eventually Ace Bailey is going to play for the Utah Jazz. We'll just see how long it takes for him and his representation to figure that out. Windhorst pointed out that no team would budge if they faced a similar scenario, and he was confident that the Jazz held the upper hand. The Jazz called the bluff. They had the 5th pick. They knew Bailey was a top 3 talent, and they weren't going to let some uncertified manager with a conflict of interest scare them away from a potential franchise cornerstone. No team had rival teams guessing more than Utah entering the draft, with their plans being held firmly under wraps. They were playing chess while everyone was playing checkers. They knew Bailey's talent was real. They knew the kid himself wasn't the problem. They did their due diligence, talked to people at Rutgers, talked to people who actually knew Ace as a person, and then they pulled the trigger. And you know what? Bailey reported without incident and took part in summer league games with the Jazz. No holdout, no drama, no problems, because the problem was never actually Ace Bailey. They were with Omar Cooper. Now you fast forward to now, and Ace Bailey's absolutely balling in preseason. He's already scored 20+ points in his first 2 preseason games, shooting over 60% from the field with a diverse array of shots. Now against the Spurs, his second outing wasn't nearly as flashy as his debut against the Rockets, but it was equally impressive in terms of efficiency and basketball IQ. But here's what I love the most about this story. Will Hardy said after the second preseason game that I think one of my biggest focal points in camp and preseason and early in the season is we can't overreact to anything with Ace, good or bad. We have to recognize that this is just the beginning of his career. He's a young man and he's trying to learn and grow. If he has 2 good games to start, that doesn't mean he's the greatest player of all time. If he has 2 tough games, that doesn't mean he's not a good player. That's the coaching and organizational stability that Ace needed. Not someone trying to use him as leverage to get other people's jobs, not someone making him the face of controversy before he ever played an NBA game, just solid, patient development from a coaching staff that genuinely cares about turning him into a star. So what are the takeaways here? First, not every draft drama is about the player. Sometimes there are people behind the scenes pulling strings for their own interests, and when that happens, the player's reputation takes the hit while the handlers stay in the shadows. Second is trust but verify. Ace Bailey's family trusted Omar Cooper because he'd been in their lives for years, but trust without oversight can be dangerous, especially when millions of dollars are at stake. Omar has a very small client list, currently representing Rutgers player Tariq Francis and a G League free agent. That's not exactly a track record that inspires confidence. Third, some organizations are just better than others at seeing through the noise. The Jazz didn't panic. They didn't let the pre-draft circus scare them away from talent. Danny Ainge has a reputation for making bold moves that often defy conventional wisdom, and his decision to select Bailey despite the agent's warning speaks volumes about his belief in the young player's talent and character. And finally, the timing matters. Ace Bailey kept working with Omar through all the criticism, through millions lost, through draft chaos. That wasn't enough to fire him. So Sharif signs with the Wizards and then Ace cuts ties with Omar 5 days later. You cannot ignore that timeline. That's not a coincidence. That's a young man putting the pieces together and realizing that he'd been used. The beautiful part about this story is Ace Bailey gets to write his own narrative now. And this could have been a blessing in disguise because I think the Utah Jazz are the perfect situation for him. There's no more Omar Cooper controlling his image, no more bizarre pre-draft strategies that cost him money and reputation, just basketball. And if those first 2 preseason games are any indication, the kid is going to be special. One Eastern Conference executive told ESPN that Bailey has the potential to be the best player from the 2025 draft in 5 years, comparing his upside to Anthony Edwards. That's Anthony Edwards, the guy who led the Timberwolves to the Western Conference Finals. That's the type of ceiling we're talking about. The Jazz have positioned him perfectly. They view him as a long-term cornerstone alongside Lauri Markkanen and Keontae George. He's going to get minutes. He's going to get opportunities. He's going to get developed by one of the best young coaching minds in the NBA, and most importantly, he's going to get control of his own career moving forward. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about Ace Bailey following this update? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.